How's everybody doing? We have Dr. Mick McConville back with us again. And Mick, we're going to talk through some of the stories that have caught our attention this week. There's quite a few. But first of all, how are
Yes.
you doing? You surviving the heat?
Well, yeah, well, I wouldn't call it heat where I am. It's the usual. Ever since they announced the acceleration of global warming, I've got colder every summer. I don't know.
Well, I'm looking at the sky out here. It started off beautifully blue. Then the airplanes
Yeah,
came along and it's streak, 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 streak. So the hating
yeah.
has started. But we're not going to talk about that because
No,
I don't even
no,
know.
no.
I don't know where you stand on that. I'm sure we disagree on loads of different things. But there was one video I sent you. I'm going to just pull it up here because this
Yeah,
came on X actually today. And I was like, what? What? Now let me just find it again. What have I
right.
done with it?
Okay.
Is the question. I've put it somewhere. Is this it?
Vaccine.
Yes, so
Okay.
with the COVID vaccine,
So, Andy, there's information emerging about the benefits of the COVID vaccine.
yes, so with the COVID vaccine, what they found in 28 million adults is those that were vaccinated had a 75% reduced risk of death from COVID, but more interestingly, a 25% reduced risk of all-cause mortality. So you're less likely to die if you got the COVID vaccine.
And they've released those results in France, but they haven't released them in America, and we know why that is. So,
And we
Andy,
know where
there's
that is, and then
information.
it stops. It just stops. But I'm just going to tell you where it came from. So then I had to go and source it. So it came from
Right.
O'Shea Hogan Labs on Instagram. So there's a lot of these little clips that he's put up. And it's Professor Donal O'Shea and it's
r-
Professor Andrew Hogan. Now they have this obesity immunology research group
Right.
and they've been putting up these clips. So there's not a lot of context there, but let me just read what it says beside that one. So it says, a large study of 28 million adults found something
Yes.
interesting. People who
Uh,
received the COVID vaccine had a 75% lower risk of death from COVID and a 25% lower risk of death from any cause. The data was published in France and has sparked plenty of discussions since. And then hashtag research, hashtag COVID, hashtag vaccinate, and hashtag health. So,
and I think
your thoughts, please.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing they should do is put another hashtag in there. Hashtag only read the headline. It, it, this is actually a paper from December 2025. I think it's Siemens Atto et al. And it was published in the Journal of American Medicine Open Network. So I don't know what he means, which one of those two guys, that the Americans haven't published this. It was the Americans that first published it. Um, it is a typical COVID trick paper. So there's a load of information that they're giving you there, which is simply not true. So the first thing you would have to say is look at where the paper comes from. So the paper came from the French equivalent of NIAC, so their interest is in immunization. That's their interest. So they're biased from the very start. And they designed this study, or most of these studies were designed to give them the result they wanted. So if you look at the actual clinical trials of these vaccines, there was no signal for all-cause mortality in the trial themselves. So they have to make all that up afterwards. And they do that with statistical tricks. So with this particular study, the first thing that they did, as I recall from this, was that you had to have been, to be included in this cohort of people, you had to have been with your doctor in 2020. So anyone who wasn't at a doctor's surgery in 2020 wasn't counted in that 24 million or 28 million. So there's immediately, you've narrowed down the group to what you want. Then the second thing is they ran it only from May the 1st to October, I think, the end of October. So you've narrowed the window. And by doing that, you have excluded all the people who were vaccinated between January and May of 2021. So you've got rid of a big group of people who would have been the most likely to die of adverse events. They're not counted now. So you've got rid of them straight away, you know. And then you do an even worse thing. You put a cutoff date of November the 1st, 2021. And anyone who got vaccinated after that date, and there would have been many, are no longer counted as vaccinated. So because they weren't captured in that May to November window, they're counted throughout the study as never vaccinated, which is not true. So, and then they only capture maybe about 59%, 60% of the people. So there's missing deaths, all kinds of things in the papers they're all missing.
Because it sounds really thorough, doesn't it? It sounds like 28 million people. Well, this must be definitive. This must be it.
Well, this is what they do. So by doing 28 million people, they give you the impression that they've followed 28 million people. Well, they haven't followed 28 million people. These are 28 million entries on, doctors' notes, your doctor's electronic health record. So, but they have already artificially constrained what they're doing by excluding people that they don't want to count and by including people in the wrong categories. And then they don't count things like boosters. They don't do, they're not counted. So it's only people between those two dates, between May and November 2021.
Wow. Okay.
So that's like a snapshot.
Yeah.
And now we're going to run the movie for 4 years, but we're going to keep that snapshot there.
And I think it's extraordinary the way they ignore what I pulled up there earlier, which are the Eurostat excess deaths for Ireland.
Yes.
I think it's extraordinary that this has been brushed underneath the rug. Because this is telling us a story. This is telling us something that we need to investigate further. We have that one spike, April 2020, the big one, April 2020, which correlates to what happened in the nursing homes. But then you see, once the vaccine rolls out, we see this incredible steady increase in excess mortality for Ireland. That's not been discussed by the scientists. It's not been discussed by the doctors. It's there was a little bit of a discussion in the Dáil debate, but we saw what happened. The politicians ran. There was nobody in the Dáil chamber. They ran. So it was unbelievable. But yet, these figures remain, and they are for everybody. And for some reason, you have a guy there, like Professor Donald O'Shea, just saying, okay, overall excess mortality, that this injection is actually going to bring it down.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I mean, there are none so blind as those that will not see. And they don't want to look at this. And they were hoping, I think if they were hoping at all, they were hoping that this would happen maybe 1-2 years, but they didn't think or know or care, I think, that it would continue on. It would continue on and on and on. It just does not. In fact, in the UK now, they have kind of reset the clock. They've changed their mortality level so that it doesn't reflect anymore as an excess compared to 2019. And that's to the extent that they're willing to go not to look at this, because to look at this and to actually go into it is to admit to a terrible, terrible sin. It's to admit to an appalling, human tragedy, and they cannot bring themselves to do it.
It's not good enough, though, is it? Like, whatever moral issues they're facing now, it's like, well, sorry, these things are on the table and they have to be discussed, whether you like it or. But also, I think we have a major problem with conflicts of interest. So where you have professors who are making money, they're making money out of the system. So we have, he's that guy there, Professor O'Shea. He seems to be an all right kind of a fella, really and truly. But, he's also pushing the weight loss injections.
So, Andy, all the work with the GLP-1s started based on a small protein found in the Gila monster. Now they're after finding a protein in pythons that could be relevant.
Yes, so a new study in Nature Metabolism shows that pythons maybe only once a year or once every 18 months. And they've identified a protein that allows them to control their metabolism. So what happens is when they eat, this ramps their metabolism right up, but also then suppresses appetite after it. And actually they can use this therapeutically as a new agent like the GLP-1. So there's lots to learn from these other animals that are eating very sporadically.
Now he's doing it in a kind of careful manner. He's been talking about the beauty business taking it over and it's more dangerous in their hands. And I get what he's saying. But at the same time, we have major, like the COVID injections, we have major debate and discussion that we need to do in a public forum when talking about these weight loss injections.
Yeah, but I mean, again, this is again the kind of expert class dictating to everyone else. Why would a particular drug be any less dangerous in his hand than it would be in someone else's?
Mm.
You know, just because he happens to be, you know, someone who's well read on obesity or whatever, it doesn't change what the drug does to you. You know, I mean, that has no effect on the drug. So he's giving the same drug to the same cohort of people. He's making certain choices. Other people are going to make other choices, but the net result is the same. I mean, I don't really know a lot about these because I would never use them in a 1,000 years, but I know that they won't end well.
That's what I know. You know, it's like the COVID injections when they came out. Everybody said safe. Well, we know that the people who were paid to say it said they were safe and effective.
Yeah.
And we knew it wasn't going to end well. We could see those excess deaths coming down the tracks. You know, those of us who watched, we were watching.
Yes.
Let's just pull up. I'm going to pull up this one to remind us who was the head honcho at the time. This is Fauci in Dublin. Ourselves.
And the Royal College of Physicians.
So this is the Royal College of, he was getting the medal, he was getting a special medal, and they all showed up, right? They all showed up to give him the special medal for leading us out of the scamdemic, as you like to call it. But like, incredible. This will tell you the state of Irish medicine. This is everything we need to know and why we have this cover-up that is essentially going on. If we have this guy who needs a pre-pardon to excuse his actions, who's getting a medal in Dublin, we know there's a cover-up going on, you know, when it comes to the excess deaths, when it comes to the aftermath of the injections.
It isn't just that. It goes way deeper than that. And I don't mean to go down rabbit holes or whatever. People conspiracy theories. All the conspiracy theories I know all turned out to be true. That's all I know. but if you know, as I told you that I just written a book and released the book, and the very first or the second chapter, and I think it's called The Rickety Hypothesis, and it's how this whole thing came about. And really, there was no SARS virus. It was a computer construct by a certain method. So they use this method, and it's a bit like if I took a photograph of you and I mixed it with 1,000 other photographs of other people, and we put it through a paper shredder, and then we put it through the paper shredder again, and then I would find some device that would be able to pick out your photograph from that whole shred of stuff and say, oh, there's a new virus. There's a new virus. So it depends how you write the computer program. It depends on all of this stuff, but there's no virus actually isolated, no virus. So the only place then within days, literally in the middle of January, you have Moderna, his company, put forward their vaccine candidate in 2 days. Oh, this is our vaccine. The PCR test within 1 day. This is our PCR test. So, and they're all built on the same pipeline. So the PCR test is exactly the same kind of structure as the vaccine, but there's no virus in the middle of it. It's all just computer constructs. So when people talk about the spike protein and all these other things, they're actually talking about computer constructs. They're not talking about things that were isolated in nature that you're able to look at, identify. So when you're injured by a vaccine, by a spike protein, the only actual place where you get a spike protein is from the vaccine, not from nature. We don't know because no one ever isolated it from nature. But we know that the vaccine is full of it. It's full of the spike protein, but Was the spike protein ever isolated in a laboratory? No. It was manufactured in a laboratory. And within 2 days, like Moderna had their vaccine ready within 2 days. And then they had to go through the bus of having a trial, you know, and a clinical trial. And what that clinical trial was measuring was whether or not you were going to get a PCR positive test or PCR positive diagnosis. So there we have PCR, again, it's doing the measurement. So it came from the computer, and so did the virus come from the computer. So did the vaccine come from the computer. And there's like all these people in between, you know, that nobody's looking at them. It's just
No,
this.
and also, like, here's the thing. Life magazine, I did a thing on this the other day. So this Mairead Ronan, whose husband made a fortune out of the PCR testing.
Yeah.
And it's not mentioned at all in the piece. It's just, it's remarkable. I've driven mad looking at all this stuff, but it is incredible. And she went on, TV3, what I'm calling TV3, but Virgin Media these days, to saying that she had COVID. The dog had COVID. The whole family had COVID. And at no point did they say, well, listen, you're making a fortune out of this. Maybe we should discuss that. No, let's not discuss. Let's pretend that bit isn't happening. And then front page, and then they said she hadn't done any interviews since 2019. I'm like, wait a second, no, you have. I've talked about the ones you have. It's just so bizarre. So literally things are being memory holed as well. Just uncomfortable interviews are being shoved into the memory hole, and we're not supposed to ask any questions about the fortune that was made from the PCR testing.
And I mean, you're talking in Ireland alone, 1.4 billion euros, 1.4 billion. When you think of that, I mean, that could build, so many houses, so many housing estates, all that money went on a test that even at its best, PCR test, even at its best, even done at, cannot tell you if you're infected or not. It can only tell you that there may be some of this virus in your body, but whether it's active, inactive, dead, that somebody sneezed it on you before you walk past, it can't tell you any of that. But immediately they said, oh, if you're positive for this test, there's no such thing as positive for this test. If you meet our criteria, is what they should have said, then we're going to say you have a disease. And when you look at the actual pathology of the disease, if you were to take a person who had COVID pneumonia and set them beside someone who didn't, you had some other kind of pneumonia, you couldn't tell the difference. There is no difference. I mean, the autopsy series, no one can tell the difference. It is as if the thing does not exist. It may as well not exist. And when we were in practice, within, I would say, 6 weeks of this whole thing starting, I knew there was nothing because I couldn't see anything. And throughout the remainder of my time working, I never seen a person with COVID pneumonia. Never. Not once.
Medical intervention seems to be the problem. As Professor Denis Rancourt pointed out, was medical interventions that seem to be causing the issue. And he's correct there. And he's used the scientific method. We're not anti-science. That's the whole thing. We're not anti-science.
No.
It's like, use the correct methodology. Stop messing with us,
It's the complete opposite. And I mean, in the book I look at, do you remember the Lombardy story? Do you remember we were sold this stuff, right? Yeah. If you actually do your research and you look at it, so there's a region beside it, Veneto or Veneto. So there's Lombardy and Veneto, same population, same people, same disease, blah, blah, blah. 5 to 10 times more mortality in Lombardy than there was in the other area. And the reason for that was for the last decade, they've had nothing but trouble with their nursing homes and that they have terrible pollution, in their region, and their mortality was always higher. And so the minute you take all of those people and you concentrate them in the one spot, you kick them out of hospitals, you kick them out of everywhere, and you dump them into these nursing homes, they're all going to die. But they're not going to die from COVID. They're going to die from all kinds of things. Yeah. And the mortality is going
Yeah.
to rocket. It's going to rocket. But it should rocket in uniformly. You know, if it's a virus doing this, it shouldn't stop at a border. So one region should have the same mortality as another, you
Or
know.
there's Ireland, like, so we had one peak and then it's like
Yes.
dipping below average for the rest of the year practically. That's not a
Yes.
pandemic. That's not how a pandemic
No.
operates. So we
No.
should know this by now. Like, everybody should know. But like, now we have this very strange thing that we have all the figures, and yet we're still hearing about all these, the latest scientific report that is completely
They are
contravening.
not scientific reports. They are
No.
not. They are the worst form of propaganda and pseudo journalism that I've ever seen. They are not science. There is a method to science. You have to follow the method. And when you follow the method, you can explain what you see. I mean, one of the things that should not happen with the coronavirus, it doesn't matter whether it's SARS coronavirus or another type of head cold coronavirus, they don't peak in April. You know, they peak in January. They're seasonal. So, I mean, you have this nursing home crisis, 2020, April 2020. That's when everyone died in the nursing homes. That's not a seasonal virus. Sorry. You know, that should have happened 3 months earlier.
And nobody's asked about the end of life protocols that they were put on.
No,
But
no,
I want to bring in the use of celebrities, or well-known faces, let's say, and celebrities and influencers, and that whole market where people were paid to flog the injections. And I think we had a kind of innocent audience where they didn't quite understand that this is the nature of the game. You get paid. Like, I was in it for years, you know, and there's, depending on your trust rating, let's say. So say somebody like Ryan Tubridy would have had a high trust rating, Claire Byrne, high trust rating. So, you know, these names that were very much crucial in pushing the agenda, trust was their currency.
Right,
and you saw then that a lot of people did very, very well out of those so-called, the COVID years. But, you know, one in particular, we have Jeremy Clarkson, and he did this thing. It was called Jab's Army over in the UK, heavily pushed the injections, and now apparently he's got cancer. I don't know. You see, I don't believe anything. I spent 10 years interviewing celebrities. I know how venal they are. I know that they will do anything to go up the slippery slope. I don't even believe their cancer stories. Now, he probably does have it. Maybe he does. But this is, and I know people adore him, and there was Clarkson's farm and all of that. But I suppose because I spent so long looking at the nuts and bolts of the entertainment industry, and knowing that people will do or say anything if the money's right. You know, this is the thing, and this is what the medical industry has used. And then the innocent enough audience don't seem to understand. No, there's been an exchange here. They wouldn't have done that for free.
It is weird.
Let me just play this, and then we'll have a little chat about it. Oh wait, we started at the start there. 1 minute.
Jobs Army.
I know. It's shameless.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, here we go.
This is why environmentalists are wrong. They say that nature will ultimately be destroyed by us, and we're really, really clever as a species. I mean, 9 months.
It is absolutely phenomenal.
It's staggering. We get whatever problem we can get into. 9 months. They did this.
And I think what's been so interesting about this whole COVID thing is once you deregulate things and let people get on and do things, it's amazing what creativity comes from it.
Well, I mean, look at the French can't do it, the Welsh can't do it. Don't know what's happening in Wales, but come on.
Wow. So there we have, like, you know, he's funny, everybody knows him, you know, he's pushing it, so it must be okay. Now he's got cancer, apparently.
Yeah, but it's very interesting there that Jeremy, I mean, I actually like Jeremy Clarkson, but how would you not like Jeremy Clarkson? Because he's just a big kid. And he's gone on there as a big kid, you know, and he's so odd and 9 months. But it's really interesting what the guy who handed it to him said. Oh, if you just deregulate everything, we can get on with it. And Jeremy, of course, has no idea what he's saying. Well, actually, they got that thing in 9 months, and that one there was the AstraZeneca one, which was the first one dropped because it was so dangerous. Jeremy has nothing to say about that. And it was deregulation that allowed all of this to happen. the European Parliament, the European Medicines Agency, the CDC, the FDA, that they stopped regulating. In fact, I think her name was June Rain, I think. June Rain, and she was head of the HPRA, their regulator in the UK. And she said that they became enablers, not regulators, they became enablers. And that's exactly what they did. And if you don't regulate medicines, God Almighty, you have no idea what you would end up with. I mean, snake
We're
oil
seeing it.
salesman.
Yeah, we're seeing it, aren't we?
Yes, and so it's just insane. I mean, that 9 months. I mean, what Jeremy doesn't understand is, even if you can make a product in 9 months, you have to test its safety for 5 years before you can use it. Because if you've got 40,000 people in a clinical trial, that's not going to tell you what it's going to do when you give it to 1 million people, let alone 1 billion people. And that's deregulation. That's exactly what that guy there, oh, Jeremy, make sure you get deregulation in, make sure you get this message over, because it's an ongoing project. And what people have to understand is, as I pointed out in the book multiple times, that the whole point of COVID, as far as I'm concerned, was to get this platform, mRNA vaccine, onto the shelves, because it's an endless cash cow. And they can produce a new vaccine in 2 days and slot it into that little cassette that's already there, and away you go. Every winter, bang, bang, bang. But no one is doing any safety studies on these things. In fact, as you've just pointed out, with the excess mortality, they're hiding the safety information. So this is could be a great technology. But Jay Bhattacharya, who's head of the National Institutes of Health in the United States, the most senior doctor in the United States, he himself said that mRNA technology is three Nobel Prizes away from being usable. And these people want to pump it out the door now, And so people who are listening to this, if they turn up in their doctor's surgery and they find that there's an mRNA flu vaccine, which they will, that's going to happen. And they're going to be told, oh, well, we can't get the old one anymore. We don't make the old one anymore. They need to think really hard about what they're putting in their body, and they need to know what they're putting in their body. And at the moment, we don't know what people are putting in their bodies.
But we can see the after effects. So we see the cancer uptick. We're seeing the increase in death. Now, let's just go to Jeremy Clarkson again. So I thought this was an extraordinary video. Let me know what you think of this.
Hello, everyone. Now, the more observant among you will have noticed that I'm not dead. And I'm not just not dead, I'm perfectly fine. My eyebrows in particular are looking very lustrous. And the reason why I'm fine is because the doctors caught the prostate cancer early. And they caught it early because I got tested. Now, I know a lot of you will say, oh, I don't want to be tested because it means someone will have to put their finger in me, but it's just a blood test these days. And if you go to your doctor and he says, well, I'm not going to test you because you don't have any symptoms and you're not in a high-risk category, just lie. Just lie. Say you have got symptoms. Say that you have to get up 32 times in the night for a wee and that there's some dribbling. Because look, 10, 12,000 people, men, to be honest, men die every year in the UK from prostate cancer. Don't be one of them. Get tested.
Ooh, there's something wrong there.
No, I mean, I don't know. Jeremy's probably tried to give a little bit back or whatever, but again, he's speaking from a position of profound ignorance. I mean, so the test he's talking about is a PSA test, a blood test. And the problem with that test is that it's prostate specific, not cancer specific. So if you are a bike rider, if you're somebody who's putting pressure on their prostate all the time, that test will be elevated. if you can go and get that test and you're in your 50s or 60s, you might head off for a biopsy. You might head off for, I mean, it isn't just as easy as Jeremy is saying.
Mm.
And, you know, why Jeremy's making prostate cancer, a big deal, the fashionable deal at the minute. But the truth of the matter is that most men who get prostate cancer don't die of prostate cancer, they die of something else. Because most men, there's about 1-3% who get prostate cancer will die from prostate cancer. The rest of it is treatable, completely treatable. So, of course, when you're older, when you're 70s, you're in your 70s, when these things are more, you should be going to your doctor for advice. And you should be hoping that your doctor is well read and is keeping up with things and isn't listening to Jeremy Clarkson.
And I'd say they'll have a cancer jab just around the corner, probably mRNA nanotechnology.
Well, I mean, that's how mRNA technology started. It started as a hopeful treatment for cancer, but it failed. It's been knocking about for about 30 years. It never succeeded in anything. And the only products that mRNA products that were ever conditionally licensed and eventually licensed were those COVID vaccines. The rest of them failed every test because they were too toxic and they didn't work. And, the weird thing that people need to wake up to, they need to ask your doctor, when you go for your flu shot or whatever, ask your doctor, how does this actually work? How does a shot in my arm protect my lungs? Because there's no way in hell it can. There isn't. I mean, you have to get something into your lungs to get immunity in your lungs.
Well, they'll give some gobbledygook answer, and this is where they have that leverage on people because it's like, well, I got all the A's and went to college for a million years and I have this special expertise and you won't possibly understand, but just trust me. And then, like, say we have ER is being replayed in Virgin Media at the moment. We've had Grey's Anatomy. We've had all of that priming in our brains to say, just do as you're told by the doctor now and shh,
Yeah. And well, to me, this is a really big problem. And I mean, the relationship that you have with your doctor should be a very private, very personal relationship that is not contaminated by anything other than your discussions. It should never leave the room. It should be, if someone brings me research, someone shows me research, I can cross-reference it, whatever. Anything that goes on in that room is between you and the patient, and it's completely private, and whatever decision is made, it's made between the two of you, but ultimately made by the patient themselves. And if we keep those rules, the 5 basic rules, don't harm anybody, always do them good, keep their secrets, if we keep these basic rules, then this big pharma crowd, they can't get into the doctor's surgery. We can keep them out. And that's what people should be pushing for. Leave it alone. It wasn't broken.
Yeah, but there probably wasn't enough patients. There probably wasn't enough, like, say, variety. Now look at the variety that's come out of these injections. We've got clotting problems, heart issues, myocarditis, pericarditis, all the range of cancers. So now we've got this, it's a boom really for the medical industry and for doctors. So, it's a bit of a money racket, if anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to normalize it, and I think that's what they're doing. I mean, they're gaslighting people. That word is overused, but not in this situation. I mean, I seen it in real time. Now, the thing is that you can't develop a solid tumor in weeks. So the people who got cancer not long after they got their vaccine, as I think Angus Dalglish calls it, a turbo cancer. Again, that's not really true either. I mean, you can't just grow a cancer that quick. But their body was suppressing the cancer. And when they got the vaccine, that immune suppression stopped. That's what happened for most of those people that presented very rapidly. with really big tumors and really advanced tumors, it's because their entire immune system inside had collapsed and it was no longer controlling the thing. The growth of it exploded. But there were people. I mean, most of the injuries I seen were not cancer. Would be, I would say, would be the smallest of the signals at the moment, because cancers take a long time to grow. So we're not going to see them immediately. So the nerve injuries, the dementia, the heart injuries, those are going to be the ones, and you will see that. And you were talking, we were talking earlier about that 28 million people study that they did. Well, they did another one, and when you strip away all these biases, when you take all these biases out, the immortal time bias and the healthy vaccinee bias and all these things that they build in to deceive you, when you strip all them out, as some good scientists have done, there was a 5% increase in cardiovascular deaths in the vaccinated. Unquestionable, once you put the numbers in right. And that's where you're going to see it most. That's where you're going to see it quickest. But 5% is an absolutely enormous number. I mean, there's about 2% of the population, between 1 and 2% of the population has type 1 diabetes, the diabetes that needs insulin. So that's a tiny percentage. But everyone knows someone who's got diabetes. 5% is huge. It's absolutely massive. And there's no question that these things are doing this. I mean, there was another study that was done, Froyman et al., and they redid the Pfizer and Moderna safety data from the original trials. They reanalyzed it, but they reanalyzed it with a different method. And it was 12 times more likely to harm you than benefit you.
Yeah. All we have to do is look around as well. Like, if for somebody who's non-scientific, say, if you just talk to your friends and family and see what happened after the injections, just looking at them, the amount of people now that are on drugs for life afterwards, and heart complications.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few heart complications in the older categories. See, the older categories as well, you kind of think, well, maybe they would have got it anyway. There's a bit of that too, so you have to kind of factor that bit in. And then there are the sudden deaths that, when we look at, say, even an organization like CRY, which would say basically that a healthy person can just drop dead without any reason. And that just happens. And that's just something we have to get used to. Really? They just die? What? And that we're supposed to just move along now. Don't ask any questions because this happens.
Yeah. I mean, talk about gaslighting. Yeah, and the graphs that we looked at there of the excess mortalities. Those excess mortalities are in younger age groups now. So mortality goes by age, so it doubles every 7 years. Your chances of waking it up dead, as they used to say at Cavan, it doubles every 7 years, 7 to 8 years. So the older you get, more likely you are to die. It just makes common sense. So you shouldn't be seeing excess deaths in a younger age group, because we've had these actuarial tables for hundreds of years, since the mid-1800s at least, maybe before that. So we know who dies. We know when they died. We know where they died. We know what they died from. And it's not hard to take those figures, those numbers, and run them through your spreadsheet and say, is there anything unusual here? Yes, there is. But one of the problems is that there's a 1,500, I think, it's something like 1,500 backlog of 1,500 autopsies or inquests waiting in the Republic of Ireland. So, I mean, you just showed me this guy, the professors talking to each other, professors. I mean, I'm fed up with the word professor. I really am. In my day, there was one professor of medicine when I was in university, and then when he retired, another guy became professor of medicine. Now there's a professor on every corner. And they're narrower and narrower and narrower, their expertise. they wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in a GP clinic.
But it's like being a general reporter. Like a general reporter, if you talk to them, they know everything. So they're quite intelligent because they have
Yes,
this
yes,
wide grasp. They've
yeah,
spoken to all the professors, they've spoken to all the experts, they've spoken to the taxi driver. They have
yeah,
got this
yeah,
wide grasp of what's going on.
yeah,
And it really is better than these people who are into their little specialized cubby holes. And they think
yes,
they're
yes.
correct, but they don't have the broad view.
Yeah, I mean, there was an extraordinary exchange in the House of Congress the other day with Senator Johnson. He's the senator that's been running all these inquiries into the COVID vaccines, and he was asking this professor of professors, and she didn't even know the basics. I mean, he was astonished. He was a guy who used to chuck hay for a living. He was a hay baler or something like that, and he knew more about it than she did.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think that people who are listening to this, they don't underestimate yourself. Your own common sense, your own wit and wisdom will save your life. You have to consider things. Don't just go along with the crowd. You have to consider things. I mean, what difference would it have made if you'd have waited 1 week before you had your COVID vaccine? If you'd have sat down and thought about it, talked to other people, listened to other people, you may not have got it at all.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to do. Step back, get proper advice, not from Jeremy Clarkson, not from guys who are trying to sell you something, from people who actually have your interests at heart.
Do you know what I'm kind of worried about now? So, like, we've got, say, the likes of Jeremy Clarkson who pushed the injections, and now he gets cancer. So, and then we have Angus Dalgleish who's saying the Pfizers were packed with SV40. So now, whether people must be concerned, they must think, God, do I have cancer? Like, they must be worried.
Yeah.
And is this all about pushing them back into the doctor's door again to get onto more lifelong drugs or chemotherapy, radiation, where they could get some kind of test, and the test will say, oh, you've got cancer, whether they have it or not now?
Well, I mean, at some stage, because we all know that politics is changing. The mood is changing. Everything is changing. At some stage, we are going to have a serious scientific inquiry into these things, because we're going to have to look for therapeutics. We're going to have to look for some way of dealing with the harm that these things have caused. Now, when that happens, I don't know. And it can't be from the companies who actually made them in the first place.
No.
There are good people. There are good scientists, people like Mike Yeadon, people like that who, Dennis Rancourt, people like that, who they know the scientific method, they know how to read papers, they know how they're being lied to. And you need to include those ethical people in this. But it will come to it, because more and more people, even my youngest daughter, she says to me, like, her friends are still saying to her, I wish I'd never got that thing. I wish I'd never got that thing. And that's like 5 or 6 years later or whatever it is. And
it's tough on them. It's tough because it is that kind of psychological warfare as well, where it's like, maybe it was nothing. Maybe their injection was saline for all we know, because we don't know what was after those injections, really and truly. But now there's the psychological effect of like, was it full of SV40? Do I need to get tested for cancer? Should I lie to my GP to get the latest test? It's a bit of a mess.
You're going to, and if it hasn't already happened, the health systems are overwhelmed, are going to become overwhelmed. They were already failing. Now they're failing big time. I mean, there is so much in Western society that's failing now, and everyone knows it. So there will be a reckoning, because there has to be. There has to be a reckoning. Until that happens, I don't know. You shouldn't be taking your advice off Jeremy Clarkson.
No, as cuddly and nice as he is, and I know everybody loves it because they love. But you see, this is how manipulative the media is. They get you hooked in with Clarkson's farm, and calves being born, and you really, like, for the cancer announcement, we're all there. Oh, Jeremy's got cancer. Oh, boo-hoo. Like, all together. And I know that seems really cold and callous of me, but I've just been around that. I've been around that industry for way too long to be. I'm cynical. Like, even when Kate Middleton came out with the cancer and King Charles, and you're like, really, really. And everybody's like, poor Kate. I'm like, well, maybe she has it. Maybe she doesn't, though. And that's something you kind of have to be quite cynical when it comes to these people who are well known. Because,
well, I mean, the other thing is that cancer isn't one thing. And you know, I mean, like, everybody who has cancer has a different form of cancer at a different stage, a different part of their body, a different blah, 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 blah. And, you know, so, you know, you know, Jeremy's coming out with the cancer side over the top. That doesn't mean anything. It really, and people shouldn't be afraid. It's their individual health that matters in the end, you know. And if they've got to find people who are going to listen to them, they've got, and you know, they've got to believe them. Not go to your doctor and lie so you can get a test. I mean, why does Jeremy Clarkson think that lying to your doctor or your doctor lying to you is a good idea?
But imagine you said something like that. Imagine you came out and said something going to lie. Like, you would be, well, you've already been up before the Irish Medical Council, you know, just for your tweets, which were correct. But imagine if you told somebody to lie. I mean, there'd be, all hell would break loose. And yet this celebrity is allowed to pump that out there and nobody bats an eyelid.
To hollow out that, what I would call that second relationship, that it takes you so long to build up, you know, the trust. You know, just go and lie to him because Jeremy Clarkson said so. I mean, like, Jeremy Clarkson is an idiot, and he's a professional idiot, and he looks like an idiot. He operates like an idiot, and that's why people like him. He's funny.
He's no idiot, though. You know, he's very, very smart.
Well, he's smart at making money.
An idiot savant. He knows what he's doing, is what I'm saying. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he hands it up. Like, he knows what he's doing when he's doing his little performances to camera, and when he's, you know, when they shut him off, when he goes to post it, it's all a performance.
It is. And but that was what COVID was. It was a performance. It was theatre from start to finish. And Clarkson wasn't the only one. Like, they wheeled out all kinds of people. When you think of RTE and that ridiculous thing that, you know, where they were walking around Luke O'Neill in a bubble, you know, they were walking around in a bubble. And you're kind of going, you absolute, I mean, there are elderly people isolated all over this country, you know, they're terrified, they're lonely, they are in the worst position they've ever been in their life, and you're making fun of them. That's what you're doing. You're making fun of them. And you should be ashamed of yourself. And, you know, so I think people need to stand up more for themselves and say, look, I don't like this. I just don't like this. It doesn't feel right to me, you know. And so I'm not going to go along with it, you know.
Yeah. It is a growing up moment for the Irish and for the world. Now, I'm going to wrap it up now because I want to keep it in on the hour. But we've discussed your book a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about it, because it's called Scamdemic. And I was telling you about Richard Chambers' book. And that book, very much, it's like a work of fiction. And he said that himself. It's like a work of fiction, where he is painting Netfit as the protagonist and these heroes who are fighting the deadly virus and save the nation. But it was very difficult. I mean, I got through the first chapter and I was just like, well, I was ready to vomit a little bit in my mouth. I had to put it down. I'm going to do it. I'm going to torture myself and read the whole thing. But your book is very much an interruption to this kind of propaganda.
Yes. Well, I call it SCAN, SCAN, Scandemic. So scandal and demic.
Oh, Scandemic.
Yes, Scandemic. Because there's so many books called Scam. Yeah. And scam to me is as if nothing happened. You know, there's a scam. No, something happened. And it was an event. It was theatre. It was a global event, but it was not a pandemic. And so the book takes it apart, bit by bit by bit by bit. And the way I've written it is obviously has to contain a lot of technical stuff and language and stuff like that, because you have to explain concepts. But if you were going to go I put it together so that there's a QR code. You just shine your phone at it, and it will bring you the lay version of the book. So you can read it exactly what I'm saying. And all of it's referenced, all of it is historical data. And all of it shows that this was rubbish from the start, right from the very beginning to the very end. And then they just kind of, oh, we'll turn the tap off. And it's funny how everything is kind of accepted now. Oh, the lockdowns weren't a good idea. Oh, keeping kids out of school wasn't a good idea. Oh, masks weren't a good idea. You can say anything wasn't a good idea, but you can't say the vaccine wasn't a good idea.
Mm.
You know, that is the sacred cow. And that was the raison d'etre. That was why they had this. And the very, very first, the most extraordinary thing that I found when I was researching this was the very first WHO report from Wuhan in China in February 2020. At the very, very end of it, they said, you know, oh, we're going to need mRNA and DNA vaccines. That's in the very first report. And I looked at that and went, why would they say that after 30 years of failure? Why would they pick these technologies? Why would they suddenly just say these two things when they have never worked in human history before? Every trial they've ever chosen.
You also pointed out something very interesting. A WHO tweet saying that COVID was not an airborne virus.
Yes.
In March 2020.
Yes.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, well, they got everything kind of wrong because you see, it's a notion. It's a bad notion to think that there was people sitting around a room, around a table in a room. Really, they were making it up on the fly. They were making it up as they went along, and you know, it was one ridiculous notion after another. You know, and the whole point of it was, oh, get everybody masked up, get everybody frightened, get everybody locked up, get everybody whatever, and then this vaccine will come and rescue them, and then that will be the end of it. You know, and it took that long. And it was also about protecting really bad health systems like Republic of Ireland. As we know, we spend more on health than anyone, but we have the worst outcomes in Europe, you know, because it's just bloated bureaucracy and useless people. You know, the nurses and the doctors are killed working, but they could work twice as hard and they wouldn't make any more progress, you know. And we put up with that every year, year after year after year, you know. And these are the realities that people will have to face. They have to face them. And I think they will begin to. I think they are beginning to. And that's what I'm hoping. When people read this book, as many as do read it, I said to you that it was a historical record as much as anything else. It's been made as accessible to anyone to read as I can. And they will come away with it with no doubt that what they were told was not true.
Yes, and it's methodical, and you can check everything. It's referenced. So where can people buy the book?
And at the moment, in Amazon, really, because you're self-publishing, Amazon makes that very easy. So you just go to Amazon, and you know, we'll put a link, or you could put a link, or whatever.
I do love that about now, that you can write a book and get it out. You know, you're not waiting on a publisher. You're not waiting on somebody to give you the go ahead, which it's quite freeing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it took me about 6 months to write it. The hardest part is actually, you know, trying to put it together, like to physically put it together. I didn't realize that was as difficult as it was, but it is. And researching it, you have to research everything. So you can't believe anything. You don't believe anything when you start out. That's exactly what science is supposed to be anyway. You know, no,
don't trust the science.
I don't believe anything until you can prove it to be. You know, and when you subject COVID to that, all you're left is the husk of people like Jeremy Clarkson and people like these two guys talking about a 28 million study that's attributing powers to a vaccine that it doesn't have. And these are serious people. When you look at that paper, you want somebody knocked that up they got their kid to knock that up in their bedroom in half an hour. And as I said, look at the source. If it says open source, JAMA open, Journal of American Medicine Association, open network. They don't have any standards for publishing.
Mhm.
If it was JAMA, JAMA, they wouldn't have let that paper in.
Yeah.
They would have looked at the methodology and went, are you crazy? We can't publish that.
It's
And
embarrassing. The situation is an idiocracy where we're at now, and it is mortifying
it
that we've
is.
got here. That humanity is at this point. It's embarrassing for every professor, expert, doctor,
Yeah, I mean,
journalist. It's
to
so shameful, this moment in
those
history.
people can put themselves up on Instagram or whatever the heck it was where they were and just say that stuff as if it's real, and you can't. They haven't thought about that for a minute, not 1 minute. We'll just say this. And I mean, I presume his attack on, oh, they haven't published that in America, and we know why. That's about Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy wants to reform the system. He wants to regulate the system. These people don't want regulated.
Mm.
And they've
Interesting.
already said that. They want
Yeah.
the Wild West, the cowboys go out, sell you any snake oil and no regulation, you know.
Yeah,
But
that is very interesting that Jeremy Clarkson clip pinpointed
yeah,
that.
he
So
didn't
yeah,
catch
listen, it's
that.
been
Yeah.
really interesting talking to you. We'll do this again every now and again if you fancy it. We'll go through
Yeah.
some of the stories of the day and see what you think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll leave you to the sunshine now and the chemtrails.
Yeah, it's beginning to look nice now. Yeah, yeah. You know.
Okay, well listen, thank you so much. Appreciate your insights there. And
Yeah.
we'll keep interrupting the programming. All right, have a good day.
All right. You too, Asim. Bye-bye.